All right, so are you ready for this? Get ready, because we're about to take a deep dive into Spanish verbs.
Awesome.
You seem to be working on the present tense for verbs ending in er,
That's right.
which is awesome because that's like tackling one of the three major verb groups in Spanish.
Exact.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll be conjugating these verbs with way more confidence.
I hope so.
We've got a transcript from a Spanish lesson video to work with.
Okay.
Some prime material for seeing these conjugations in action.
Excellent.
So,
It's fascinating that you're diving into verbs. It's not just about like memorizing those endings. You're going to uncover how actions are expressed in Spanish.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's unpack the basics a little bit. We know Spanish verbs change depending on who's doing the action and when it's happening, right?
Yeah.
This lesson is all about the present tense, those right now actions.
Exactly. And just like English verbs shift subtly, like I walk, he walks.
Right.
Spanish verbs transform way more dramatically.
Yeah.
This lesson zeroes in on verbs ending in "er," and you'll encounter both regular verbs, which follow predictable patterns,
Okay.
and irregular verbs,
Uh-oh.
the rule breakers,
The rebels.
with unique conjugations.
Okay, so it sounds like we're in for a bit of a linguistic adventure. Let's start with some regular R verbs from this lesson, like vivir, which means to live, escribir, to write, and reunir, to gather.
These are great examples. Take vivir, for instance.
Okay.
If you wanted to say I live, it becomes yo vivo.
Yo vivo.
The R ending shifts to O for the pronoun yo.
Okay, so the root viv stays consistent, and it's the ending that morphs depending on the subject. What about some examples with other pronouns?
The lesson provides mis alumnos escriben perfectamente, meaning my students write perfectly.
Okay.
Here, escribir becomes escriben because the subject mis alumnos, the students, requires that specific conjugation for the the form.
Okay, cool. So these examples show us how these verbs actually function in real sentences. What other gems did you find in the lesson?
There's also nosotras reunimos 10 kilos de comida para los necesitados, meaning we gather 10 kilos of food for those in need, showcasing how reunir becomes reunimos for the we pronoun nosotras.
Nosotras reunimos. Okay, so regular ir verbs seem manageable.
They do.
They follow consistent patterns, but now
Uh-oh.
let's face those rule-breaking irregular verbs.
Here's where things get intriguing.
Okay.
The lesson highlights verbs like oír, to hear, ir, to go, and pedir, to ask for, each with its own quirks.
I'm already curious about ir. It seems like a very simple verb, but I bet it has some surprises up its sleeve.
You're right to be suspicious. Ir is notorious for being highly irregular.
Okay.
It completely transforms in every form. For example, I go as you voy. You go as tu vas, and he goes as él va. It's a memorization challenge for sure.
Wow. Ir is truly the rebel of all the ir verbs.
It is.
What about oír and pedir? What makes them irregular?
Or it gets tricky with the yo form.
Okay.
To say I hear, it's oigo, oigo, adding a G where you wouldn't expect it.
Right. Okay, I'm starting to see how these irregular verbs can throw you for a loop.
Yeah.
What about pedir?
Pedir is sneaky. It swaps the E for an I in some forms, like yo pido, tú pides, and él pide.
Pido.
But then it reverts back to E in other forms, such as nosotros pedimos. You'll notice this E to I shift in other ir verbs too, which is a helpful pattern to recognize.
So pedir plays by its own set of rules, sometimes following the pattern, sometimes breaking it.
Exactly.
How does the lesson use these irregular verbs in context?
One example using oír is puedes hablar más alto, no te oigo. It means you can speak louder, I can't hear you. Notice that oigo is used here,
Yeah.
reflecting that irregular your form.
Yeah, I'm seeing how mastering these irregular conjugations is crucial for understanding and speaking Spanish naturally. What about examples for or and pedir?
The lesson gives us ¿por qué nunca vamos de viaje en verano? Meaning, why do we never go on a trip in the summer?
Okay.
This highlights how vamos is the we form of the very irregular ir.
Fascinating. And how does pedir show up in a sentence?
The lesson uses Mi hijo pide siempre una bicicleta a los Reyes Magos por Navidad, meaning my son always asks for a bicycle from the three kings for Christmas.
Hold on.
This sentence shows how pedir changes to pied for the he form,
Okay.
in this case the son.
Reyes Magos. This lesson is subtly weaving in some Spanish culture with these examples. Instead of Santa Claus, we have the three kings bringing gifts. It's like a little window into Spanish holiday traditions.
You're picking up on those nuances, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
Language and culture are inseparable.
absolutely.
It's not just about grammar. You're getting a glimpse of how Spanish speakers express their world.
This deep dive is already proving to be more than just a grammar lesson.
Absolutely. Speaking of going beyond the basics, the lesson also touches on the difference between the subject and predicate of a sentence,
Okay.
a grammatical concept that's key to understanding sentence structure.
Can you remind us about subjects and predicates?
Of course, the subject is who or what is doing the action, while the predicate tells us what the subject is doing or being.
Got it.
The lesson uses the sentence, Yo vivo en una casa enorme, meaning I live in a huge house.
Okay.
Here, yo is the subject, and vivo en una casa enorme is the predicate.
And to bring it back to our focus, the conjugated verb vivo is the core of that predicate.
Precisely. Understanding the interplay between subject, verb, and predicate is vital for constructing well-formed sentences in Spanish.
So we've explored regular and irregular verbs. We've encountered those tricky conjugations, and we've even touched on the importance of subjects and predicates. What stands out to you about how this lesson presents the information?
What's impressive is the way it breaks down the information into manageable chunks,
Yeah.
starting with those regular verbs and then introducing the irregular ones.
Okay.
It's like building a solid foundation and then adding complexity layer by layer.
I appreciate that approach. It helps make these potentially overwhelming concepts feel much more approachable. And by using real-life examples and even those cultural references, the learning process feels engaging and relevant.
Absolutely. It's not just about memorizing dry rules. It's about seeing those rules come to life in authentic Spanish.
Okay, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground already.
I have.
We've laid the groundwork for understanding present tense era verb conjugations. What does this all mean for you, our listener? Why should mastering these conjugations matter?
Mastering verb conjugation is the bedrock of speaking and understanding Spanish beyond basic phrases.
Right.
It unlocks the ability to form coherent sentences and express yourself clearly.
It's like the difference between playing single notes on a piano and being able to play a beautiful melody.
Exactly.
Conjugation allows you to string those words together into something meaningful.
Exactly. Without proper conjugation, your Spanish will sound fragmented no matter how many words you know. But with practice and a solid grasp of these rules, you can begin to speak with fluency and confidence.
That's an inspiring thought. And while it can feel overwhelming at first, are there any strategies that can make this process a little easier?
Absolutely. Focus on recognizing patterns.
Okay.
As we saw, regular verbs follow predictable rules. Once you crack the code for one, you can apply it to a whole family of verbs.
It's like finding the key that unlocks a treasure chest full of new verbs.
Exactly. And even those rebellious irregular verbs often have their own internal logic or recurring patterns.
Yeah.
Paying attention to those patterns will make them easier to remember.
I noticed how this lesson uses repetition and practice through those real-life examples. By seeing and hearing the conjugations in context, they begin to feel more natural.
Repetition is key. The more you practice conjugating verbs, the more they'll become second nature.
It's like learning a dance. At first, the steps feel awkward, but with practice, you start to move with grace and fluidity.
And remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's a part of the learning process. This lesson even encourages you to write down the conjugations and practice saying them out loud, which helps solidify those patterns in your memory.
Engaging multiple senses. So we've talked about the importance of verb conjugation, we've explored regular and irregular verbs, and we've even shared some tips for making the learning process smoother. But this deep dive is about more than just the mechanics of grammar, right?
You're right. It's about the joy of discovering a new language and the world of possibilities it unlocks.
Learning Spanish or any language is a journey of exploration both of the language itself and the cultures it represents.
Absolutely. It allows you to connect with people from different backgrounds, broaden your horizons, and gain a deeper understanding of the world around you.
It's like learning to see the world through a new lens, noticing details and nuances you wouldn't have seen before. What advice would you give our listener as they continue their Spanish language journey?
First and foremost, be patient.
Yeah.
Language learning takes time and effort. You'll encounter moments of frustration, but don't give up.
Celebrate those small victories along the way, like conquering a tricky conjugation or understanding a native speaker for the first time.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment, to use your Spanish in real-life situations, even if you're not perfect. The more you use the language, the more confident you'll become.
We've focused a lot on conjugations, but we can't overlook the cultural context embedded within the examples themselves. For instance, that sentence about the son asking for a bicycle from the Reyes Magos offers a glimpse into Spanish holiday traditions.
You're spot on. Language and culture are intricately woven together. You can't truly understand one without the other. This lesson, while emphasizing grammar, subtly introduces us to those cultural nuances through its choice of examples.
As you continue your language journey, keep your eyes and ears open for those cultural insights.
Yes,
They add depth and richness to your understanding of Spanish.
absolutely. Language is a window into a culture's history, values, and way of life. Now, before we move on, what struck you about this particular Spanish lesson? Why do you think it's effective?
Besides the clear explanations, the visuals, and the engaging examples, what impresses me is how it encourages active learning.
Right.
It's not about passively absorbing information, it's about actively engaging with the material.
That's a key point. The lesson prompts you to pause, try the exercises, and check your answers. It's like having a personal tutor guiding you through the process.
And by encouraging you to write down the conjugations and practice saying them aloud, it reinforces the learning process and helps those patterns stick.
It's a multisensory approach to language learning that really works. And it highlights the importance of practice and repetition, which are crucial for mastering any new skill, especially language.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed by all the different verb forms and tenses, remember to take it one step at a time and practice consistently. And don't forget to have fun along the way.
Yeah.
Language learning should be an enjoyable journey, not a chore.
That's a perfect note to end on. We've covered the fundamentals of verb conjugations and even unearthed some cultural insights hidden within the lesson.
We'll continue our deep dive in the next part, exploring even more strategies for mastering Spanish verb conjugation and delving deeper into those cultural insights.
Ready to jump back into those Spanish verbs?
Absolutely. I'm eager to uncover more strategies for mastering these conjugations and exploring those cultural nuggets hidden within the lesson.
Excellent. One classic technique that's stood the test of time is using flashcards.
Flashcards.
Write the infinitive form of the verb on one side
Right.
and the conjugated forms on the other.
Okay.
Regularly quizzing yourself reinforces those patterns.
Flashcards, simple yet effective. It's like having a mini Spanish tutor tucked away in your pocket.
Precisely. And here's another powerful technique. Create your own sentences using the verbs you're learning.
Okay.
This helps you internalize how they function in real conversations and adds a personal touch to your learning.
Instead of just memorizing those conjugations, you're actively using them, bringing them to life. What other learning strategies can you share?
Don't underestimate the power of repetition. Read those example sentences aloud.
Okay.
Write them down.
Yeah.
Listen to them.
Right.
The more you immerse yourself in the language, the more natural it will become.
It's like listening to your favorite song. At first, you just enjoy the melody, but the more you hear it, the more you start singing along, effortlessly remembering the lyrics.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of music, listening to Spanish music can be a fantastic way to train your ear and pick up new vocabulary and grammatical structures.
I love that idea. Music adds a fun and engaging element to the learning process. What about other forms of media?
Movies and TV shows are also excellent tools.
Okay.
Watching Spanish language media with subtitles allows you to see how the language is used in real-life contexts.
It's like getting a backstage pass to Spanish culture, observing how people interact and express themselves.
Exactly. And as you become more comfortable, seek out opportunities to practice speaking with native speakers.
Whether it's through language exchange apps, online communities, or in-person conversation groups, actually speaking the language is invaluable. It can be intimidating at first, but it's the best way to build fluency and confidence.
You're absolutely right. Remember, everyone makes mistakes when learning a new language, and native speakers are generally very encouraging and patient. Now let's shift our focus back to those intriguing cultural insights we touched on earlier. That sentence about the son asking for a bicycle from the Reyes Magos is particularly fascinating.
It really highlights a distinct cultural difference. Instead of visions of Santa Claus Spanish children, anticipate the arrival of Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar, the three kings bearing gifts. It's a tradition steeped in history and folklore.
Precisely. The three kings, or Reyes Magos, are believed to have journeyed from the east, guided by a star, to Bethlehem to present gifts to the baby Jesus.
That story is celebrated throughout Spain with parades, special foods, and of course, the exchange of gifts.
And this cultural tradition is interwoven with the language itself. For example, the Spanish word for gift, regalo, stems from the word rey, meaning king.
That's fascinating. The very words we're learning are infused with cultural significance.
It's remarkable how language embodies a culture's history, values, and narratives. Another cultural reference that caught my eye was the mention of Real Madrid and Barcelona.
Ah, yes, the legendary rivalry between these two football clubs. It's more than just a game in Spain. It's a clash of cultures, identities, and regional pride.
Precisely. Real Madrid, based in the capital, often represents the establishment, while Barcelona, rooted in Catalonia, symbolizes Catalan nationalism and the aspiration for independence.
It's amazing how a simple mention of these two clubs in the lesson opens up a window into such a complex and captivating aspect of Spanish culture.
It does, and it underscores how language can be a powerful lens for understanding not just grammar and vocabulary, but also the values, beliefs, and historical narratives that shape a culture.
So, as you continue your Spanish language journey, keep an eye out for those cultural gems. They enrich the learning experience and deepen your understanding.
Absolutely. Language is more than just words. It's a reflection of a culture's soul.
So, why should you, our listener, care about these cultural insights?
Understanding the cultural context of the language you're learning can help you avoid misinterpretations, communicate more effectively, and build stronger relationships with Spanish speakers.
It's about going beyond the surface level of language and truly connecting with the people who speak it. We've delved into the mechanics of Spanish earverbs, both regular and irregular, and we've uncovered some captivating cultural insights along the way.
It's been an enriching exploration.
What final thoughts would you like to leave our listener with?
I would say embrace the challenges and the joys of learning Spanish. It's a journey that will undoubtedly broaden your horizons and enrich your life in countless ways.
And remember, consistent practice is key. The more you immerse yourself in the language, the more confident and fluent you'll become.
And don't let mistakes discourage you. They are simply stepping stones on your path to fluency.
Keep practicing those conjugations, explore those cultural nuances, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
The vibrant world of Spanish awaits.
So we've explored these ear-verb conjugations and uncovered those fascinating cultural connections, and I'm feeling much more equipped to tackle Spanish verbs.
Yeah, it's incredible how much depth we've found in what seemed like a simple grammar lesson.
Before we wrap up, are there any other strategies our listener can use to really make these conjugations stick?
One thing that often helps is connecting new information to something familiar.
Yeah.
For example, think about how the English verb to go is also irregular. We say I go, he goes, they went.
So irregular verbs exist in English too. It's not just a Spanish quirk.
Exactly. Recognizing those parallels can make those irregular forms feel less foreign.
That's a helpful perspective. Are there any other tips you can share?
Think about the context where you might use these verbs. For example, if you're learning pedir, to ask for a resistant, imagine yourself at a restaurant in Spain practicing how you'd order your meal.
So instead of just memorizing yo pido, I can visualize myself saying, yo pido la paella, por favor.
Precisely. Engaging your imagination and creating scenarios helps solidify the language in a practical way.
That's brilliant. It's about making the language come alive, not just treating it as a set of abstract rules.
Exactly. Now let's revisit those cultural insights we discussed earlier. The tradition of the Reyes Magos is such a vibrant part of Spanish culture.
It's so different from the Santa Claus tradition that many of us are familiar with. What else can you tell us about this tradition?
Well, the arrival of the Reyes Magos is celebrated on January 6th, known as the Epiphany. It's a day filled with festivities, parades, and gift-giving. Children often leave their shoes out the night before, hoping the kings will fill them with presents.
It's like a magical blend of history, religion, and cultural celebration.
And it's not just about the gifts. The Reyes Magos represent hope, generosity, and the importance of welcoming others, reflecting deeper values within Spanish culture.
I'm seeing how learning about these traditions adds a whole new dimension to understanding Spanish culture. What about the Real Madrid and Barcelona rivalry? We touched on its cultural significance, but can you elaborate?
This rivalry goes beyond football. It's intertwined with politics, regional identity, and even language. Catalonia, where Barcelona is located, has its own language, Catalan, which is distinct from Spanish.
So the rivalry reflects broader cultural and linguistic differences within Spain. That adds another layer of complexity.
It does. And it reminds us that language is often a reflection of social and political dynamics.
What a fascinating insight. As our listener continues their Spanish journey, what advice would you give them about navigating these cultural nuances?
Be curious, be open-minded, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Embrace the diversity within Spanish-speaking cultures and appreciate the unique perspectives they offer.
It's about approaching language learning with a sense of cultural humility and respect.
Precisely. And remember, learning a language isn't just about memorizing words and rules. It's about connecting with people, understanding their stories, and appreciating their worldviews.
What a beautiful way to sum up this deep dive. We've journeyed through the intricacies of air-verb conjugations, discovered effective learning strategies, and unearthed fascinating cultural insights.
It's been a truly enriching exploration.
Any final words of wisdom for our listener as they embark on their Spanish language adventure?
Be patient with yourself. Savor the journey, and remember that every step you take brings you closer to fluency. Buena suerte.
And that concludes our deep dive into the fascinating world of Spanish air verbs. We hope you've enjoyed the exploration and gained valuable insights along the way. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the rich tapestry of the Spanish language.